Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's up, Woods people? I'm here today in Sulphur Springs, Texas, and I am glad to be here. It is Monday morning, March 6th. It is the day after our Iowa trip. We're looking at warm temps, cloudy skies, and a few common house finches out on the feeder. What say you, Casey?
I'd say that's what they are. That's a good call. I haven't even thought about the speciation of the bird species out there. So, but man, I'm so glad that we did what we did this weekend. But I'm glad to be home. It's always cool to go to new places, but at the same time, home is home. And I was glad to get home and see my wife. And honestly, I got a little tired of being cold.
Yeah, there was moments, man, when it was pretty hard to deal with, especially that first morning. Good grief.
Yeah.
21 degrees, or maybe not 21, but lower 20s. Mm-hmm. And that was tough. That was tough to be out there doing that thing. I felt like a real true cowboy.
Man, the only answer was to not be a real true cowboy and go get in the truck and turn the heater on.
Pretty much. My fingers were hurting.
Yeah.
So, as we said, we went to Iowa, and today it's just me and KC, so we're gonna kind of recap the trip. And then we hope to have a couple of guests on in the future to talk about what we saw with and to kind of discuss with these guys that actually live and breathe it right there in the state of Iowa. And hopefully get their opinion on what we saw and ask them questions, because there are questions galore. And I asked KC all weekend, question after question, and he's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not from here either, so I don't really know the answer to that either. But it's good that you're not afraid to ask those questions, because I probably have them too in my head, and I'm probably a little too proud sometimes. So I'm like, well, I don't know the answer to that, so I'll just forego even considering that being a something that we need to work out. You know what I mean? Like, if we see some sort of deer sign or some sort of terrain feature or habitat feature, and we're like, I don't really know what that is. My answer is like, well, since I don't know, I'm going to ignore it, and that's not really good woodsmanship to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm there, bro.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You can go ahead and ask me. I don't know. I can almost guarantee you that. No. I had so many questions, dude. It's just, it's difficult. Like, because it's so much different, for one, than the stuff we've seen here. And then, on top of that, I just don't think that you can put it all into this is the way it is or this is the way it is fact. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of guys do. And a lot of guys have, several things figured out. But sometimes I think there's a little bit of overconfidence in what guys are saying, just because that's how they make their money, So, but hopefully we can get some of those questions answered on these in these next couple of podcasts with a couple of guys that we're hoping to get on that we've been in talks with. So it's really just a matter of working out schedules at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's funny how this is I'm doing air quotes right now that y'all can't see, but this is the off season, and this is the busiest time.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we all clear out our schedules for, October, November, December, because we know we need to be in the woods, and we got a little extra time in there, and right now it's my goodness, I've got if me and you aren't going and doing something in the woods one weekend or sometime during the week, I'm of course working, trying to do a little bit of extra jobs too in the evenings or whatever, and then there's some sort of activity with, church or something. We need to go see other friends who are having babies out the wazoo, by the way. I don't know why this is baby season. I guess it's the age we are. But, before we get into, we're going to dive into some of the stuff we saw and, what we thought about it and how we're going to use it to hunt. But, okay, so you're going to be, we're hoping and praying, the tag holder next year. You're the hunter. What did you see that impressed you the most or got you the most excited about Iowa while we were there? Like the one. Give me one, because I know you've got like, this big concept of blah, 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 you know. Give me one little thing.
It's crazy that you said this because my wife asked me the same question last night.
Oh, so you're prepared.
Exactly same question, so I'm not really prepared, but I have a thought. The most exciting thing that I saw or witnessed or felt on the trip was talking to the private landowner.
Really?
Yeah, next to public. Yep.
I had a feeling you were going to say that one.
Yep.
So tell us about that a little bit.
Brow tines.
Brow tines.
The first evening we got there and did some scouting on a certain place, and we'll kind of go back to that, I guess. But the next morning we got up pretty early and froze, like we said. And then so we kind of did some driving and surviving for the first like hour and a half. And tried to see some of these ag fields, see where deer were coming out, see if we could find any bucks coming out using certain areas, in the around public, and that was fun. But then we got back, did eggs and bacon, and went back to do some boots on the ground type stuff. And we got out there, did that for several hours, enjoyed it, and came back about noon to the truck, and we are, at a parking kind of area for I guess public lane entry, and all of a sudden we hear a truck coming down the road, and we're like, what is this? So this white truck pulls up, and we're kind of thinking, I'm thinking like shed hunter possibly or whatever, didn't think like it was out of the ordinary too much. And so this guy comes up, he's got his window down, he's kind of got this like, I liked the guy, after we got done talking to him, I liked him, but he kind of got this little like I'm up to no good kind of look all the time.
Smirk kind of thing going on, didn't he? Yeah.
So he ends up coming up, and we're cooking lunch. We got a burner going and warming up some stuff, and he goes, "What's for lunch? I'm hungry." Out the window before he even stops, And so he pulls up and said, "What are you doing, dude?" And like I knew him, and he was like, "Well, just checking on my property." And I'm like, "Oh no,
here we go."
We're not, like we read the map wrong or something, So anyway, we kind of back and forth. He's talking about the land next to this, next to this parking area, and that's his or whatever. And we're not sure, obviously, that all the info is correct that he gave us, but like we became pretty good friends for such a brief relationship. And we offered him some elk meat that we had, and stuff like that. And he declined, but seemed really appreciative. And all of a sudden, we've been talking for 15 minutes or something. And he's like, "You boys want to see some pictures?" And we were like, "Are you serious right now?" And he goes, "Maybe I shouldn't." He's like, "I don't know if I should do this because you guys are going to be hunting down there." And Casey goes, "We're going to be hunting down here no matter what." We've already been in on this side, and seen what's going on. So anyway, he pulls out his phone first, flips it up, and there is a 173, that somebody in his family had shot. And just a big giant deer with one of them big long Iowa deer looking noses, it looks like it's about 18 inches long. And we were like, holy cow, and so, that's cool. It's cool to see that, but everybody's, got property next to a guy who shot a 170 or whatever, it seems like.
That was like, okay, so that one deer was enough. You know what I mean? Like we were pumped. Like,
and I mean, like I said, everybody, even we go out West Texas, and everybody's, the guy next door to me, and his, his great uncle shot a, 170, and everybody's got that story. Mm-hmm. But what happened next is not what everybody's story is.
No, it was unbelievable.
He pulls out a stack, probably about 4 inches thick of photographs, like actual photographs, because I don't think he didn't have an iPhone.
This guy's old school.
He had a flip phone.
Yeah.
So he didn't probably have very much storage to be, putting pictures on his phone or whatever. But anyway, he has this thing. He's just flipping through. He's like, "Let me show you a few of these." And so we get to looking, and we quickly realize that there are some great deer that he's showing us. And we also realize that the 140s and 50s, he's not showing us. He doesn't care. He's like, it's just a little dinker, And he just put it at the back, wouldn't even say nothing about half of them. When he showed us, we basically saw several deer from 160 to 212, I think is what big one was.
Yeah, I think we saw 9 bucks that were in that class.
I mean, at least.
Yeah.
At least. And they
I'm
were
talking
all,
about 9 dead bucks, not just the
Yes.
trail cam pictures and stuff he showed us, which were amazing.
Right.
And side note, he had a solid white deer that was absolutely gorgeous. Solid white,
mature,
white as snow.
fully mature.
Fully mature buck. That's like a big 4-point or something weird, but he was
Yeah.
fully mature and awesome. But so giant bucks that he's showing us, man.
It was awesome, man. I was like, there was one time I was standing there beside, he was showing them mainly to KC because KC was kind of like through the window a little more. And I mean, he was showing me too, but he was kind of pointing them at KC. So I kind of squeezed in there and he would show us a deer, and like 3 or 4 in a row, I said, "Look at the brow tines, dude."
Dude, one of those deer had like 11-inch brow tines on both sides.
Oh yeah, both sides, dude.
It was insane.
I mean, and they were just all massive bases.
Yeah, and
dude.
it wasn't like a deer like your brown tine buck. I mean, he's awesome, but like he's a little bit free-corned. Like his brow tines are kind of almost like a separate main beam or something.
Yeah.
That deer that he showed us just had 11-inch brow tines with a huge rack
4 inches
as well.
apart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was strange,
dude. It was unreal. And then, there was 2 that were over 200, but they were both his buddies, and they weren't killed on that property. So, but that's the type of deer that live in that area, and that's why we're going there.
Do you remember the question I asked that guy? So I think I led with, like at home, meaning Texas and here, like a 130 is kind of like, that's the marker. We're like, a big deer, and we're going to take mature versus immature and set it aside right now and just talk about horn size, because that's why you go to Iowa, because you can kill a mature buck here just like you can kill a mature buck in Iowa. Mature is mature everywhere you go, but in Iowa the reason you go is because they actually grow large antlers. Okay,
and
so
large bodies
too. Goodness gracious alive. But okay, so we're going to put that disclaimer out of the way and set mature versus immature way and assume we're going to shoot mature deer always. Okay, I asked the guy, I said, so 130 is like our goal here, in Texas or whatever. Like it's at least for me and the people I talk to. What's y'all's mark up here? And he's like, he kind of hem-hawed around it. And so he showed us a few more pictures, and I said, so what's a 160 to you? And this guy's kind of a character, and he looks up to me and says, you let them grow. Which I'm sure it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really at the same time. I think that, like, it all depends on the deer to this guy, but, like, he really kind of believed that at 160 he's going to, like, take a look at the deer and see if it's worth shooting.
Right.
And that's insane.
Yep. There goes the train. Yeah, dude. I do remember now that you say that, and that was like, we almost like the whole time we wanted to look at each other, but we couldn't, and be like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I knew, like, in my heart, I was freaking out, but I was being cool with this guy. Like, I didn't want to be like, oh, we're from Texas and those are giants. Like.
And a point to be made here is that this guy comes up, and like we're very self-conscious about being from Texas because everybody hates Texans, honestly. Like, people in other states don't like the fact that we are so boastful about our state.
Yeah,
and
we're proud to be Texans, which I am. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you don't want to be that guy that people are put off by.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of worried about that sometimes, but he didn't make any jokes or anything, and we kind of, quickly, I think, made him realize that we are decent people, and so he was very friendly. And I think that the point is that we figured out, a place that we definitely we are close to the area of where massive bucks are being shot. We need to be hunting close to that. And B, we've got a contact there with a guy that probably will never hunt after talking to him. We'll probably never hunt his property, which is fine. But it's always good to have that no and have some guy to go, when you come up there, say early November, and he goes, yeah, there was a big deer with huge brow tine shot down here on public, and I saw the guy, 3 weeks ago, whatever. And then you go, well, okay, so our big deer that we've been following has been shot, he's on trail camera, and that's the only one in here. Let's go somewhere else or whatever. So, those are kind of little things that could possibly happen. On top of that, like, we may get to shed hunt his place one day. Yeah. Like, if you keep that contact, you're nice to him, bring him some, something something from Texas or whatever, you know, that's kind of cool and is only made here in Texas or whatever. We talked about some hogback straps or something like that, you know. I mean, and people, they appreciate stuff like that. I mean, and for me, it goes more than just like trying to get personal gain out of it, even, but like just I enjoy meeting new people, and that's one reason, you know, when I touring for the last 10 years. That's one big thing I enjoyed. It was just meeting new people, and sometimes you're like, really don't like this person, and you just kind of slip off and like pass it off to your buddy or whatever. Like, you know, a lot of times, man, you get to meet interesting people, and you never know where they're gonna help you out when you're in a pinch. Sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and this is the kind of guy like I would like to have a year in year out relationship with and talk to him every time we go up there.
He's a neat character, man.
Yeah,
for
neat
sure.
guy to talk to, and like.
Just a dude, really.
Yeah, and he's older than us, you know, but he was a cool dude. And not that you can't be older than us and be cool. That was kind of weird. But, like, you know, like sometimes there's an age gap, you know, weird thing there. And there wasn't with this guy at all. You know, he just respected us as hunters, and we respected him as a hunter. And
he talked about his shirt. He was like, I like your shirt right before
I had
we
that
left.
public landowner shirt on. He liked it, man. And he was like a straight up private guy. So that was kind of cool.
He kind of gave you that like nod, like
that bro nod.
Yeah, exactly. I know where you're at, bro.
Yeah, it was cool. But you know, he's a guy who, if we didn't meet him in that scenario, like, and we met him, you know, up the street at the convenience store or whatever, and he still showed us the pictures, I'd still like love to sit there and look at him and dream about those deer, even if there's no chance that we'd even be in the same area as him. But now, you know, what we know from that guy like that is a target area for sure.
Just that's one of them first or second dayers, probably.
And then one of the questions that arises, which I know you like your questions, is that the case like in Iowa, or is that the case in that one spot where there's so he pretty much showed us pictures for the last 10 years and really from the last 5, and it seems like about 2 deer over 150 are killed every year off of his place, which is like a 40 or something like that, you know, and that's just insane.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, and he has some family land there, and I don't know like necessarily if he gets to hunt that or not, but I mean, still, like, if it was 500 acres, there's that much public there too, you know, whatever. So like, I mean, it's and another thing that, and this is something that we probably can either go into now or talk about later, but like, you know, your majority of your ag is going to be on private. Therefore, the majority of your habitat is going to be on public. You know, when you're talking public areas, you know, I mean, I guess they have to live somewhere when there's private.
Yeah, there's
sometimes
some private CRP
private,
and fence rows and stuff. And you know this hunting way better than I do, but it seems like to me that the majority of, you know, deer habitat and places to live and, you know, have shelter, especially winter shelter, which I think is a big deal up there, is on public land, right?
Yeah.
At least in the areas that we went, you know.
One cool thing I noticed was, and started thinking about was, and this may be the case in a lot of areas, but like, it's definitely the case here even, I think sometimes, but like, you know, you've got a private landowner is going to try to maximize profit on his property almost always. So it's either going to be in grazing or ag, you know, in areas like that a lot. So like, you saw as well as I did, when it's grazed, there is no habitat for deer hardly at all.
Not at all. Dude, the cows destroy land up there.
Yeah.
I mean, worse than here. You know, here, like, I don't know if it's just because we can't put the density of cattle per acre or whatever, but up there, man, any place we saw that had cows on it, like, it was muddy and disgusting and smelly.
No grass, you know, smelly. It was, and it is. And then, you know, obviously, like, deer can live in the corn all summer once it gets over, you know, shoulder high or whatever. But like, there's only a few months there before it gets cut. And then there's a bleak winter, you know, where they have to find somewhere to live. And so, you know, the cool thing about the public land is that it's literally incredible habitat for whitetail deer, man. And not just that, but as we saw a lot of other places or a lot of other animals, it's a great habitat for them too. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw a ton of waterfowl over there and a bunch of prints and tracks and stuff from lots of different small mammals and stuff like that too, which was kind of cool. And it seems like the DNR does a pretty dang good job in Iowa. And it makes sense that, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of their income or, you know, economy rather is from, you know, the outdoor side of things.
Right.
and it was
grain
cool.
and wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. And they leave, standing ag on public for, the deer to eat in the winter and stuff like that. Pretty cool. And turkeys too. Oh, we saw a ton of turkeys and pheasants.
Yeah, we
so
did.
That was neat.
And KC hadn't seen many pheasants, so that was a cool deal for him.
Man, I got to see like roosters running around and stuff. I thought I saw some from a long way away at one point in time, but they ended up being robins. And then I kind of impressed myself with my own eyesight a little bit there. I was like, gosh, I just saw a robin at 300 yards and thought it was a pheasant.
Yeah.
Well, that was weird. Not to be boasful, but I was blessed with good eyes.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Anyways, the DNR seems to do a real good job up there, and something I noticed there compared to here, not to be critical of our wildlife program in Texas, but the signage in Iowa is great. Mm-hmm. Like it seems like every 100 yards there's a sign on the border saying this is public land, this is for hunting, and this and that.
Big signs too.
Yeah,
they probably spent a lot of money on that stuff.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that works. Obviously, hunter opportunity, it's great, but at the same time, like, I guarantee you, there's guys that are like, man, I wish I could just take those two signs out so nobody would know that's my spot.
Sure.
But yeah, let's get into it. Let's break it all down, man, and try to talk about what we saw, what was interesting, and just kind of filter through this stuff and maybe answer a few of the questions that we have.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
We've got several properties that we looked at. We did 12 really hard miles, we figured. Mm-hmm. We did some map measurements, and so we figured it was about 12 miles through just slogging through a lot of like wet marshy stuff, a lot of that, and so many rose bush and thorn trees that I couldn't believe that. People are always like, in Texas it'll either bite you or stick you or prick you, or I'm like, in Iowa it will stick you and prick you for sure.
For sure. There's locust trees and then some little bitty thorn trees that are like hedge trees of some sort. I don't know what they are, but man, them things, they're sneaky.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh, it's just a tree. I'll just push it out of
the way.
You can't
see the thorns.
No,
tiny.
And then it gets you. And you're like, and then of course the roses, like
hammered us.
If you see some red vines, stay out of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like where's that one place we went to? I think it was in the Jericho place, where it was like 200 yards of just going through this rosebush tunnel, and every 3 feet you get grabbed a hold of. And I have long hair, and it seems to be more and more of a burden every day whenever I'm doing outdoor stuff. So, one of these days I'm going to end up shaving it off, and it'll probably be a relief, but I enjoy it now. But, I mean, you saw me. I was getting my hair hung up in branches and all kinds of rose stuff.
Man bun.
I know, dude. I need to just, braid it up, put it in cornrows when we go to Iowa.
That'd be perfect.
Cornrows, dude.
Cornrows,
man. That might be kind of neat.
Dude. That'd be good. There was the roses killed us, though, for sure. So the first night, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
The excitement, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Holy smokes.
We crossed into Iowa and saw turkey within the first 3 minutes. We're like, this is the land of wildlife. We're
here. We're here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we ended up at a place that we're calling the Sounder property. Because, and it may be referred to as the hog property or something like that, but it looked like hogs had been there. It was just beat up with whitetail sign. And there's not hogs there, so we know it wasn't. But it was just there was beds everywhere, and you could see them, and some of them were to the dirt, like we've seen on TV and stuff like that. And we're like, I can't believe that this is real. This isn't how it is there in Texas where we hunt much. And so it was cool. There was just rub after rub after rub, trails going every way, and they were all beat to the dirt. And when we first got out, I was like, we're here. Mm-hmm. And this was the first place that we had looked that we wanted to see on the map. And we kind of just discovered this place, KC, mainly through map study the last couple weeks or whatever. We just discovered it though, this last week pretty much. And so we're like, man, this could be awesome. So we get down in there, and it was, immediately you could tell it was pretty much anything and everything we wanted, and it was incredible. We got lots of video of some incredible rubs, and we spent a lot of time finding buck beds. And the one thing that we didn't really do over the course of this trip that I would have liked to have done is pick out stand trees. Mm-hmm. We didn't really do that well because we were trying to find signs so hard and decipher when is this sign made, and what general area do we hunt. And so, like, my point being, the sign was overwhelming.
That's why we call it. And this was across all the places we went to, but especially this one location. The amount of sign is why we call it the hog place, because the trails and stuff that the deer made were just muddy messes, pretty much, and yeah, I feel like we didn't do a great job of specifically picking out stand trees and whatnot, but I feel like there's enough trees there to where I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. It just might take getting to the woods 15 minutes earlier in the morning or something like that, so I don't think that's something we have to worry about too much. One thing we didn't do that I wish we would have, and I guess we'll go ahead and come out and say this, we didn't find any sheds the whole time we were there, so we didn't do that either. But me and you both knew this was really a scouting mission that we were hopefully going to find some sheds on, and not like a true shed hunt. Because if it had been a true shed hunt, we'd kept our eyes on the ground the whole time and grid search places, and we didn't do that at all.
And if I could, I think we just kind of start bringing some of this stuff to light and not like saving it for a certain time, and just so we can all just kind of make all this work and make sense to everybody. But like, we ended up hanging out with a few of the guys from Midwest Whitetail, which was really cool. And we spent some time just chilling with them one night, Saturday night. And what's cool about it is that, like, you're talking with guys that are pretty much experts in that area. And so, like, you get to legitimately hear what the truth is, somewhat. So, like, it was really, really neat. But they said that Zach was saying that he thinks a lot of those public lands get hit pretty hard and pretty quickly for sheds. So I'm sure like, if there's deer dropping in February, they're getting picked up on the weekends, and so you hope that deer drop pretty heavy the week that you come. But at the same time, like, you can't expect to find too many sheds, and if half the sheds have been picked up that have already been dropped, that really leaves your chances as being pretty low to find them.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, the easy ones are going to get picked up too.
Yeah, and plus, deer are hitting winter food sources right now, and most of those are not actually on public.
Yeah, so they're dropping out there.
Yeah, they're dropping in the middle of a
whatever,
green field that we can't get in, right. And I wish we would have had more time, but we didn't have time to knock on doors and talk to people really that much, And
we walked, man.
Yeah, we did. But, man, at that Sounder place, I was taken back with how much deer sign there was. And what sticks out to me about that spot is that one rub. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes.
It was on I think that was a hackberry tree, wasn't it, or something? It was literally the size of my waist, maybe a little bit smaller. But, right there in that, like, 28 to 30, 32 inch, range where it was just giant, And
it was rubbed pretty good.
Yeah, it was rubbed, and it was like a I'm a mad rub, and I'm going to gouge these big old, big old marks in this tree. And
I was telling KC is like, yeah, that's a huge rub and everything, but you also have to think about and realize this: the deer pretty much has to get his horns around that tree. And you start thinking about that, and that means pretty impressive.
Like, tip to tip on the main end of the main beams has to be like at least 14 or 15 inches wide for that deer to at least get his head around it. So, like, you're talking like a deer who, like, just by the nature of antler construction is at least 20 inches wide, if not wider.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, pretty snazzy. And that rub, too, was like right at the peak of my shoulder at the highest marks that deer made. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a super tall guy. I'm like 5'10 and a half, 5'11. And, what's that put his head at? Like at 5 foot tall at the top of his rack? Like, dude, that's a giant.
Right.
And I think that something I had to do in Iowa personally was manage excitement, I guess, because there's rubs everywhere, and you don't need to get caught up on like, oh my gosh, that's a great rub. He really got after that one, or like, But like that one was really worth noting.
Right.
I didn't see
that was the biggest tree we found a rub on the whole time,
for sure.
And there was some big ones. And we'll post links to some of that stuff, some of the big trees that we found, and obviously there will be some of that video of some of the bigger trees as well. But like you were saying, you have to manage your thoughts and everything. And one of the best like pieces of advice I felt like we got from the Midwest guys that night was like, which also has to do, it's a little bit hypocritical, I think, in some ways, because we have heard several stories and from all different kinds of people that we've been in touch with that, like, you can and people do shoot deer right next to the road. Mm-hmm. And it's all kind of relative to human pressure. And, if those deer are in the rut and there hasn't been anybody in there in 3 weeks, really, that, they're likely to just overtake that parking area or whatever, pretty much, But back to the advice, they were saying, like, one of the best ways to kind of feel like that you have a good chance of being in deer is to pretty much ignore all the sign within a half mile of the road or the parking area or whatever, and focus on the sign past that, because it's all the same. I mean, it blows your mind, but like, it's not like you get a mile back in there and then all of a sudden, like, the sign goes crazy. Like, those deer are coming up to the roads and stuff at night and making the same amount of sign as they do during the day elsewhere, or heading back to bed or whatever, if not more sometimes. So you got to kind of be careful and really think about what, when that sign is being made, is it during daytime? And also, that sign could have been made during a 2-week period where there happen to not be very many people in that one spot, So there's just so much when you're hunting out of state that's unknown and hard to manage, I guess, because we could go up there and be in a spot, in Iowa. It takes several years to draw sometimes, so we could draw the same tag as the guy that hunts in that spot that we're going to hunt next year. He hunts there every 3 years or 4 years that he draws a tag. And so we just happen to hit it on the wrong year or whatever, and so there's just so many different variables, so many questions, and the best thing really to do, I think, after all this and all the questions I've asked you and them, and is just like, go find a great place, look at maps, find the terrain, make it all make sense, and then just hunt. Go hunt,
I think that's
because
right.
there's big deer there.
You got to it's almost like you have to micromanage, which is something that is, in everyday culture kind of considered a bad thing. Being a micromanager is a bad thing. But when we're talking about Iowa, where there's deer sign everywhere, like, it very well may be that what we consider a shooter is almost on every ridge, and you just have to worry about the spot that you're at, worry about what the wind is doing there and how the deer are using that specific area. You can't, like in Texas, we get so caught up with, like, especially on this public land I do, the idea that there might only be one good mature deer in this whole unit that I'm hunting, and I have to cover it all and figure it all out. That way I have the best possible chance to shoot that one deer. Well, and I'm not downplaying the giants that are in Iowa. You just have to understand that you just like are a baby salmon who grew up in the river and you just swam into the ocean to start your life. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's like in Iowa. Like, it's just, little fish in a big sea, and you gotta, really take all that amazing habitat and condense it into the one area that you really think is the best for you to hunt. And that might be even a little bit of self-control, where, like, we see one of these places where there's so much sign and we're a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe it's time to get back to basics and go with what we know, and, how to hunt, and take what we know from hunting here and hunting in Kansas where you've hunted and apply it there.
Right. One thing I think that you hear or see or read in a lot of whitetail content is that the importance or the efficiency of hunting a stand in the first sit. You always hear about the first sit, man, is the best sit, and it's actually not a bad problem to have if you take that into effect. Like, there's sign everywhere, so find 5 spots, go on a 5-day hunt, and hunt a different spot every day, or whatever.
Exactly.
And still feel good about your chances,
For sure. I think that's something that, we've heard that before we've been to the Midwest and looked at stuff. And we're like, man, how do you hunt something only one sit? Like, I'd run out within 3 or 4 times, because, like, for instance, where we hunted this year, if we did first time only, I mean, where would we have gone? You know what I mean? It'd been just shots in the dark because that was the best place to hang a tree stand, and you go to Iowa and there's a whole new set of problems to solve, but that's not one of them because there's a ton of habitat and a ton of good places. So that's very encouraging, but there's other things that are tough, so like it's just different. I mean, I know that's so vague, but it's just different than what we're used to.
I mean, it's one of those things like if you want to kind of know what we're talking about, you pretty much have to go up there and observe and get the experience, because it's hard to understand. It was hard. I know so much many different things is so much more than I did when I 3 days ago or whatever. And it's just I have probably 3 times that many questions, or whatever. And so I think that the only way to solve any of this is to go up there and start hunting,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with a tag, but
yeah. For real, the first way to solve it is to draw. But I think you hit on something earlier that's kind of should be touched on, and that is that we could be unlucky and draw the same year that somebody else draws who plans on hunting the same exact spot as us. And if we would have spent all our efforts and say they've 200 acre square block and is getting to know that really, really well, then we could have just been, up there just taking shots in the dark, if our spot's blown out or something. But I feel like we did a pretty good job we covered like 60 miles worth of places to scout, pretty much 4 distinct different areas within, a 60-mile radius or whatever that we feel pretty good about, and I think that's going to make a difference. If we show up to this one place, it's not the end of the world if there's 5 cars at the parking spot, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. And we also have that, like, hopefully the youth and just the, like, determination sometimes to, like, go a little bit farther than we maybe even should. Like,
yeah, for real.
We ended up, like, the last day we went to a place that we're calling the Bobber Place because it was so up and down, so many ridges and stuff. And we were like, yeah, we got, like, an hour here. We'll just zip in. Do this right here. We'll go through this. I'd like to see this, and then we'll come make kind of a little half circle here and come back, or whatever. And that was like, oh yeah, that's good, man. We'll be back in an hour or whatever. And so 2 hours later, we arrived at the vehicle, and we were like, we ended up doing like 2.5 miles, through up and down hills. That's funny. Like you out here, if we were to walk 10 miles, it's one thing. But where we were at, especially that morning, man, there were some vertical hills.
My hammies were squeaking on me.
Yeah.
That was a tough day, a tough morning, and made for I wouldn't say a long ride home, but like it was kind of a struggle to stay awake every once in a while. It's because, especially at first, because we got back to the truck and we're just like, zoning out.
Long way.
Yeah. But, then you get on the road and then you start talking about everything you saw, and it's like excitement all over again on the way home.
You just kind of got to keep hyping yourself up.
Yeah, for sure.
Every like half hour,
Yeah, and what's funny is that, I've done all this map study and stuff to get ready for Iowa, and then guess what I did this morning?
Map study
after we got back. Like, I'm already ready to go again.
Dude, you're nuts.
Yeah, I love it though,
Casey's got unlimited data, if you can't tell.
Okay, so I feel like what we did this weekend was put boots on the ground, and try to get a look at what areas the deer are using them and how they're using them, and now it's where do we go from here? Okay, so we've got, 5 months, 6 months, maybe more. Maybe I can't do math.
Let's see. We've got 7 months.
7 months until we could be in Iowa in a stand. And we may or may not make it up there for another flying trip sometime late in the summer. It's going to be tough to do, but yeah, I'd like to. But, say we don't. Okay. What do we do with the information that we have gathered right now between now and October, whenever, probably mid-October, before we can make it back up there?
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, Tyler's going to ask questions, which I'll probably do a lot of that too. And, we're going to try to, tap into some resources and talk to some different people about stuff we saw there that will also help us here too,
Dude, it's nice. I mean, it's nice, honestly. I mean, this is why having hunting buddies is important. This is why, when I talked about hanging out with the Midwest guys, but also just, but my point is here with you, this is why it's good to have hunting buddies, because I am my own person. I do things a certain way. I think about things a certain way. And so I just get in these big ruts, just thinking about why does this do this? And why is this making this do this? And, where do I hunt, or whatever. And it's good to have you just be like, oh, it's simple. Just do this or whatever, and sometimes it may not be that simple, but to have you do that every once in a while, it is that simple sometimes too, So it's good to have hunting buddies that can really have a different view than you can or whatever, I've got another friend, Cody, and we have, kind of different philosophies on life in a different way, and so you get, when we used to hunt together, we try to collaborate, but at the same time, sometimes you just kind of are drawing a blank or whatever, and it's good to have somebody go, look, I'm going with my gut, and this is what my gut tells me, or whatever, So that's a good thing, kind of to be noted here is, man, if you don't have any hunting buddies, you need to start talking to some hunting dudes. Yeah. Go to a banquet or whatever,
Exactly, and expand your circle. And I think that's kind of a neat thing. I've got a buddy like that too, Brennan. Me and Brennan have never hunted whitetails together, not once.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
But he's still a hunting buddy. He's one of my best friends, and we bounce stuff off of each other all the time. And it's kind of neat because we've never hunted the same place, so we're talking to blank slates when we talk to each other about stuff, And he has no bias to the places that I hunt, and vice versa, the deer that I hunt. So it's really good to talk to someone like that who can give you kind of a outsider's opinion and base solely on things they have learned and experienced in the woods. Now, side note on that, make sure the person you're doing that with actually has spent time in the woods, know, because, you might have, and not to discredit any new hunters, but, if you got a guy who's in his first season of archery, he probably isn't going to, he might have some fresh ideas. Don't get me wrong. He was worth talking to, but you got to, weigh those, situations out. And then, then you can expand your circle further, like what we did when we were in Iowa. Reached out to those guys because we knew, dude, they kill big deer there, and we don't.
I'm willing to learn from anybody who's done something bigger and better than me.
I learned that a long time ago from a boss that I had that was an extremely intelligent fellow. He taught me that if you don't know something, find the person that has proven they know it and ask them. And that's that's what we did, and made some friends, and hopefully. I don't want to say it'll pay off because I like having friends either way, but hopefully we can learn from each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yep. So that'll be good.
I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of different habitats that we looked at throughout the trip. And so that was one thing that created a lot of different questions in my mind. And we went from anything from the first day being in hog country, it seemed like, to the next day just having, seemed like marshland around us a lot, but there was also ridges. And so we did a lot of transition searching. So we're looking at terrain transitions and trying to work these edges, because that seems to be what whitetails like to do as, a general across the board concept. So we looked at, we'd find, there's a group of trees over there that look different than this group of trees. Or, this is all open, but then there's a willow line right here. Well, look at that. There's a rub line on that sucker, which there was on every single willow line.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it was confusing at that point too. But, I think one thing you can't go wrong doing a lot of times is being far back in, because pressure is going to be a lot less. You may still have pressure. You may have the determined hunter, or you may have the private landowner, that steps in there 2 miles back and steals your camera. But, there's definitely going to be less people than there is at, a sixth of a mile or something. And so we definitely we made some big rounds through lots of places, and we did find a deadhead that first morning, pretty close to the like right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that was like
close to the truck.
when we started to realize that, man, Iowa is awesome.
Yeah.
Because this deer's like, when we looked at teeth, he's like a 2.5-year-old, maybe even a 1.5. He's like a 120 10-point.
Yeah.
Like,
Just one of those deer that has the frame that you go, that's genetics right
that's
there.
a booner, in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, no question. And it's crazy because he's already starting to like make a little trash and stuff on the bottom of his bases.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to see him dead, but that's just part of life. Winter's tough up there. But it was a cool find, cool thing to see. We'll put out a few of those pictures and stuff too. I'm sure.
We'll have lots of pictures to link to. Hopefully in the notes and stuff like that. Or I'll link a few pictures, but we have the video that I'll put together pretty soon here, and we'll link to that. And it'll probably be kind of long. It'll probably be, I would think, no less than 10 minutes because we have several like little 60 to 90 second interviews where we're talking about this is what we found, this is what we're looking at, we've been doing this today, and here's why this works the way we think it does. So there's some cool stuff there where we feel pretty confident enough to speak on it and put it on video. And so I'll try to make something up there and link to that. And hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But I definitely would say going forward that, like you said, the map study is going to be important.
Yeah.
And then not just, it's hard because around here you can look at aerials and pretty much figure it out, not just figure it out, but you can pretty much figure out the way the land is going to look when you get there. Not necessarily figure out what the deer are doing, but there you can look at maps on the aerial and you might not know what it looks like until you get there. And so you got to look at topo maps with it. But the thing is, even with those, man, it's hard to imagine sometimes what that thing is going to look like unless you've been there several times. I feel like,
I think that's what's cool about what we did this weekend is we went and we really have only looked at aerials. We haven't looked at a lot of topo stuff, and we went and saw what that looks like. And it's in Iowa. It's tough because there's a lot of terrain change, and there's ag up top and there's ag down below. So you can't look at that and say. Like around here, if you see ag, usually it's kind of the river bottom stuff, But so we went up there and saw what things look like, and now we can come back, look at the topos, overlay them onto like the aerials, and compare and contrast and see, how is the deer going to access this ag field, and it's really important to start to learn how to read these topo maps, And I'm no expert, but I've kind of figured it out. Look for the wide spots between lines, and that means it's more flat. It's a flatter terrain, and if it's really close, then you got kind of a bluff or a really steep terrain. So you can look at all these hills and valleys and see, places where the deer could funnel down through, and then you look at your aerials and say, okay, that's a thicket, that's an ag field. Where is that place in between the two? And we're going to be doing a lot of that, in the next couple months.
And I mean, if we feel like we have a hand on or a hang on, what something is going to work out and this could possibly work for us or something like that, we may even like do a little short video segment and being like, look, this is where we're hunting, we're doing this, and this is why we feel like the deer are going to be doing and the way they're going to be traveling. And we may do some of that stuff just to kind of line it out and show you guys like what we're seeing. And whether or not you want to go up there ever in your life, at least you can kind of, follow the story a little better, I guess, with what we're saying. I know this is all hard to kind of follow right now.
Yeah.
We're just kind of jumping all around because we didn't feel like saying too much about north, south of this and, this goes east and west kind of deal because it's hard to follow here listening,
Yeah, how's that going to benefit the audience? Concept is something that, really we can all share
right.
and learn from each other on.
And there's stuff to be learned there, I feel like, that can very much apply here,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's cool, like... And it develops questions like you talked about, but like, okay, so in Iowa, I'm looking at a topo map right now. We're dealing with some places 1,000 foot of elevation change. That's 100 foot. I'm sorry, 1,000. I had it to 0.
I was like,
but
whoa.
Still, 100 foot of elevation change is a lot. There's not a place in Hopkins County where you can find that.
Yeah,
or
I mean, not in a quick.
Yeah, or any of the places that we hunt, down south of here. There's none of those places that you can find that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And can you take that and shrink it by a decimal or a half or something and say, okay, I know some places, further down the state down there where we've looked at that there's 50 foot of elevation change or 30. Mm-hmm. And are the deer going to use that? Are they going to go by a 2/3 rule where they walk 1/3 down the way of the hill and bed right there and stuff? So, you take those things and do a cross section and figure out, is that going to work here? And you apply those concepts and just test it out and see how it works.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, everything's relative to the area, and you can shoot a deer here in Texas on public land. That's a 120, and that is a great deer for a public land kill, man. I mean, so he may not be that big in Iowa, but don't be afraid to not be interested in going to Iowa too, if that's not what you want to do. Mm-hmm. But we are definitely excited about it. And so, the future is bright. I think that I can draw a tag, for sure within 2 years. And I'm hoping that this next year, well, not for sure. Nothing's for sure, I don't think. But I feel really confident about doing it within 2 years and somewhat confident about drawing it next year. So, future's bright. The excitement is high.
Yeah.
And,
Casey's putting in now building points this year for sure. Like I may believe, or for sure, it's.
And I think Casey's going to basically kill this deer for me because he's got the map study on point. So I'm really thankful for that. We spent a lot of time just following his lead this weekend because he's done a lot of work on the map study where I haven't quite been able to do so much. So. We're excited about it, and I'm going to try, if I draw it, we're going to try to fit it in somewhere next season because we've got a pretty busy schedule for next season already building, don't we?
We do, man. Between, trips out west, your trip to Canada, and...
Yep. You're going to, you'll be doing Colorado in September for sure, and I'm going to try to tag along on that one. And then I've got I'm going to British Columbia again on a sheep hunt end of September. Through beginning of October. Won't be here opening day, so you're gonna be in the stand by yourself.
Got to self-film that sucker up.
Yeah, and then so I'll be back, and then it'll be pretty much time if I draw Iowa to go up there once, maybe mid-October.
Yeah,
we're
gonna we can kind of talk about that a little bit. We're gonna key on just cold fronts and try to be mobile. Luckily, we both have work schedules.
Low-paying work schedules,
yes. Where, we can say, all right, well, I'm going to have to hold up for a couple days and take off, and it's fine. We're both kind of semi-self-employed. So.
Yeah, we could definitely probably make more money, but then we wouldn't hunt as much.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
What's life about?
We're blessed in different ways. But and when it comes to October, we might end up there on the 12th, which seems like maybe the first day we could be there, after you get back or whatever, or it might end up being later, who knows? Yeah. But we're going to try to.
And then I've got Kansas, that I'll be for sure probably hitting that heart of the rut right there in Kansas. So for sure. And I'm usually anywhere from 2 to 4 trips up there in October, November, December. So, it's looking pretty busy. That we haven't talked about even hunting here yet, in Texas. So you add that in there, and it starts to get pretty hectic. And I'm not sure how much my wife's going to like me by next December. But hopefully Christmas will be good for her.
There you go, man.
So yeah, we're pumped. Before then, though, spring fishing's coming up soon, and we're gonna have to lock down these trail cameras and leave them alone for about. Till August before we put them back out, I guess.
Yeah, I think, that's kind of my plan the next 2 weeks is to try to get out there and get those cameras picked up, and some of them are a long ways away. But, it's time to get them in and get them out of the elements and stuff to where, they don't just ruin or get stolen.
Yeah.
But, and then it's time to lock down the fish, man.
Dude, we're going to get it. We got some trips planned for that, too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And there's a couple coming up quick.
Yeah, local stuff.
It's about to be striper season.
Yes, sir.
And that's a fun time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, watch some of our social media stuff for some of that stuff that's going to be happening pretty soon.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna put some videos up pretty soon for on YouTube. I think that some stuff from the past that we've got, and hopefully we can make new videos here in the next couple of weeks too. So we're excited about that, and we're going to be posting a lot of that from the Element, but I've got the Hydro channel, the Hydro playlist set up on the Element channel. So if you're interested in that fishing stuff, you can find it. And if you're not, you don't have to watch any of the Hydro, playlist or whatever. If you've listened all the way through to this episode and it was confusing, I'm very sorry. It was just an overwhelming amount of information that we received this weekend, and we tried our best to, all bring it together in about 45, 50 minutes here, So thanks for listening. If you are interested in seeing the video, we'll link to that in the show notes here. We'll also link to our buddies Zach and Eric from Midwest Whitetail that we hung out with the other day. We're going to link to the bucks they killed, the video of the bucks they killed this year. So go check those out. They're awesome hunts. Those guys are doing incredible things on public land. And they don't just do Iowa, they hunt public lands all throughout the Midwest. And make sure that if you have any suggestions or that if you're enjoying what you're hearing, that you give us a good review on iTunes and let us know, hey, I'd love to hear from this guy. Or what can you guys tell me about this? And we'll try to do some podcasts with some of these questions or whatever that you guys are submitting. Or if you have something on a video that you have a question about, submit that and comment on the video on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube so that you can see things when they're coming out and kind of stay current on all of that. So that when we're talking, you know what we're talking about. And we did plenty of live videos on Facebook and Instagram this weekend. I think that's going to be a thing when we go on these trips, is trying to make sure that you can see what we're up to and be up to the minute on that stuff. So, make sure you're following on those platforms.
Yeah, and you can look forward to the Iowa hunts because we've got pretty good service in most places we are.
Yes,
we'll be doing some live updates from stands and stuff.
Yeah, we were top of the ridges with big rubs doing, live videos. So it was kind of cool to see that stuff. So over the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to really break it down and get a little more tactical and a little less big philosophy, overarching concept, and get a little more into the details and whys of what we saw in Iowa with a couple of our future guests. So make sure and check into those, and we will try to get you something that actually makes sense and get an expert on that kind of hunting to clarify all these different questions and concepts that we've done. So thanks for listening. God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time. We're in the element together.